morning, grinders. Welcome to the RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD. If you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Monday, October 9th, and you know what we do on Mondays. It's Mondays with McCool. I got James McCool here, co-author, The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. He joined me for a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. He's disappearing and taking care of his kids for a second. But if you want to join me and him for a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass or the Advanced Player's Guide, which includes the custom Excel tools that both me and James use, playing DFS, go pick that up, theoryofdfs.com. Hit that thumbs up button. Give me those thumbs. You know how much I like them in the morning as you wake up. So we're going to go over and recap yesterday's week 5. It says week 4 on the title, but it's week 5. It's with the week 5 recap with from the NFL slate yesterday. You're fine over there, James? Everything's going well?
Yeah, I'm all right. Margaret is at her sister's right now, so Damascus is here. And he has my phone, and he has an iPad, and he has his favorite things on TV, but he wanted to make sure that I knew that he also had his dinosaur.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad he has his dinosaur. Everyone hit the thumbs up button because he has his dinosaur. That's good.
That might happen a couple times, but I'm here. So yeah. Anyway, how was your week, Jordan?
It could have been better if Justin Jefferson would have just caught like one more ball. I would have been fine. I would have still been not good on FanDuel, but on DraftKings I would have not bubbled a whole bunch of double ups. I mean, I made it in a bunch of double ups. I won more than half my head-to-heads, but I bubbled in I was out by like 1.5 or 2 points in double ups. So it's like I was like, please come back. Please come back in the game. Please, Mr. Jefferson. And he didn't. So Rippin' Sippin' says in the chat, best Monday show ever. No one reviews results DB like this one. Yes, we'll be going through that. Yep. How was your from the Twitter? It seemed like you had a good week.
Yeah, I made a couple $100. So I faded David Montgomery and HN and GPPs, right?
Okay.
So that hurt.
Well, I mean, you just to be clear, you only played 3 lineups,
right?
Okay.
Right.
So I in GPP I played 10 lineups. So yeah. There's a very big distinction between in GPPs between I didn't play any of this guy in a lot of lineups. Like you could play anyone you want. So the thing is, if you wanted to play HN in a lineup, you have to build your lineup in a different way. If you want to play Montgomery in the lineup, you have to build your lineup in a different way. You could play whoever you want, but once you build a whole ton of lineups, I could have built hundreds upon hundreds, thousands of Devon Achan's lineups. And I could also build hundreds of tens of thousands of ones without him. And then if I'm only playing 10, I could choose 5 of each. I could choose 8 of each, 8 and 2. I could choose 10 and 0 if I want to. I decided to. I did not play HN in any of my 10 GPPs. I didn't play him in my cash lineup.
Ooh.
I almost got there. Right? I mean, that I did fine anyway because I played Mixon instead because I'm supposedly a spreadsheet socialist, right? Because my attitude is that on this slate, given the choice, projections being similar, I had Mixon and Achan projected practically the same.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play David Montgomery because he was the highest projected running back with the workload that he was going to get without Gibbs there and a 27-point implied total at home. Yes, give that to me. I'm not a big fan of playing 3 running back builds anymore in cash. So I need to compare, $5,800 type running backs to the mid-range wide receivers. And there really weren't good projected mid-range wide receivers. Maybe Marquise Brown. Maybe something like that. And then we got these punts that projected well. Chase projected well. Jefferson projected well. Tyreek was the third out of the bunch. So I'm I'm just going to play I'm just going to play this lineup. Just Hurts. I could have gone up from Hurts to like Mahomes and then played HN and then moved up from Raymond to someone else. Or if I'm going to punt to tight end, I might as well just punt all the way down to Jonnu Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, there were Laporta lineups that I looked at. That's like, oh, well, I could play, instead of playing Hurts, I play Richardson, right? And instead of playing Jefferson, I go down a little, then I play Laporta. It's like DraftKings cash. It's like, unless you're going all the way up, like I'm not going to do it. So just I settled on this. I'm just like, I wanted to play Mixon and Montgomery for the volume. Mixon had 6 carries inside the 5-yard line and scored on none of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people would say that's what you get with that's the Joe Mixon experience.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to it's hard for me if you told me beforehand, James, before I fix my light. If you told me beforehand that Joe Mixon would touch the ball 26 times and HN would touch the ball 12 times. I mean, I'm going to play Mixon over HN in cash games at least. Right?
Well,
given the choice.
Yeah.
Or you disagree with me?
Oh, I disagree. But I mean, I disagree because
you disagree because of ownership, though.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about. I knew he was going to be higher on, and that's the main reason why I added way more head-to-heads and triple ups this week. So that's one thing that I did, and that's why I still didn't lose all my money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is because I won more than half my head-to-heads. I didn't make it in the triple ups, but I knew going in on Thursday, I'm playing Mixon over a Chan, and I know that 60% of the field is going to play a Chan in cash. How do I make money on this more than just double? So let me add a bunch of stuff. So feel free to call other than ownership.
Oh, no. Other than ownership, I thought HN was the second worst play on the slate. Like, I was very happy to fade him in GPPs. I thought that his ownership in GPPs was egregious across all levels of GPPs. I thought that it was silly to play him in cash, but like, I have a process and I have a theory.
The highest owned lineup.
So I played him. And
what was your, based on your projected ownership? What did you play in DraftKings double ups?
So I actually played in my head-to-heads. I played a lineup that was 8% lower than what the max ownership would have been, but it projected for 10 points better. So I was like, I might as well go with that one.
So what did you play? What was your lineup? Mine's on the screen.
Yes. Well, so mine was Jalen Hurts, Dave Montgomery, Devon Chan, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Wan'Dale Robinson, Sam Laporta, Alvin Kamara, and the Titans defense.
Okay, reasonable.
I put up 192.
I could have played. I didn't have Kamara projected as high as you did, probably.
Yeah, I mean, Kamara was just another person where I didn't really love him from like a pure median and actual play standpoint, but in cash, like he was somebody that I thought was pretty necessary based on my strategy. I put up 192. I only lost 3 head-to-heads this week, so that was great. But like you
got kind of unlucky with Kamara also because they were up by so much that they didn't really have to use them much in the second.
Well, not only did I get unlucky with Kamara, but I got unlucky with Tyler Boyd's touchdown being called back too. So,
but that's not an opportunity issue.
Well, I mean, I would say that it is more unlucky to have a touchdown called back than it is unlucky to have a spot where New England doesn't put up doesn't put up any points and starters get pulled. Like I think that there's more luck involved in touchdown variance than there is an opportunity variance, if that makes sense.
Sure.
But regardless, I mean, it doesn't matter. Cash games were great to me this week, but like I said at the beginning of this, I didn't have David Montgomery or Devon Chan in any of my GPP lineups, which hurt pretty bad. Another week where, and this week, even Breece Hall got there.
Breece Hall, what was up? I don't know what projection you had for Hall for ownership, but it was way higher. I mean, if I take a look across the board on, let's filter by running back on all these. So I looked at on Results DB right here. So I have the Wildcat right, which is the higher stakes, like 4,000 entry. I didn't want to do the Mega Millionaire because that's like under 1,000 entries.
Yeah.
So like to compare these to large field would be you want like the wild and something a little bit bigger. So I have the Millie, and then I also have the play action. So like in the Wildcat, Brees Hall was 22% owned. The Millie, he was 31% owned. 29.5 in the play action. What happened with did I miss the memo?
I don't know.
Brees Hall, I think, in one of my 10 lineups.
I only had him for 13% ownership.
Yeah, that's the exact. I had him in the 12 to 14% range.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he turned out to be 31%.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, I mean, like I had Joe Mixon higher. Well, in the Wildcat, he was 29%. Like if you see here in the Wildcat, Montgomery obviously the highest. Okay, we don't have to question
that. Makes sense. Yeah.
But Bijan, Joe Mixon, 29% each in the Wildcat, but in the Millie, 15, 23 and 15. And here's 21 and 12 in the play action. So if you want to consider that higher stakes, whatever, I want to say the sharper contest, a lot of sharper, it's hard to use the term sharp, but whatever. Higher stakes players tended to use Bijan and Mixon more than they used Achan and Hall. And then everyone else underneath that kind of was just a mix. I had one Pacheco lineup. I had a Swift lineup. I had a Mostert lineup. I even had a Kyron Williams lineup. What did you do at running back?
So I played, let's see. I played Madison and Swift in one. I played
okay, hold on. Let's break it down, because remember, we're not talking about players. We want to care about lineups. Am I to assume that the Madison run lineup, like you had like Kelsey in there, or did you use Madison as a one-off, or your strategy was more, I have Madison in this lineup as leverage off of Justin Jefferson?
I had Madison in this lineup because I had a game stack of Minnesota, Kansas City in another lineup. And that game with a really high team total, I wanted pieces of it kind of sprinkled through all three. And Madison, his expected fantasy points was actually really good leading into the game. Obviously, Cam Akers ended up taking a lot more work this week, so it is what it is that they're going to get him involved. But I played Alexander Mattison in the Vikings defense in this one, looking at Kansas City not being able to put up points for whatever reason, but a high-scoring game. In another lineup, I had Pacheco. So I kind of split those running backs in two, thinking that both of them had plenty of work and upside and good expected fantasy points. And that game was just a high total game. So in the game that I did not stack, I split. With one lineup, I had Madison, and with one lineup, I had Pacheco.
Right. I was more like I had a Pacheco Chiefs lineup.
Sure.
Chiefs defense, DSD, right? Only because Cousins gets sacked and he drops back all the time and fumbles and.
Well, and the Vikings are just a freaking turnover machine, man.
Right.
So I'm totally with that.
I'm not a big fan of Isaiah Pacheco. Because they run those like yes, he's the lead back, and then once they get inside the 5-yard line, Andy Reid just like.
He does whatever.
Okay, let's open up that goal line playbook where it's stuff from the, like the silent films in the 1930s, like kind of plays. Insane. Like you never know what's going to happen there. But he did. I mean, he did get a carry and did get in the end zone.
He was fine. I mean, they both were fine, right? They put up 13. It just in a week where every backup running back scored 37 fantasy points. Like it was.
That's what we're calling. That's what we're calling Brees Hall and Achan. Backup running backs.
Achan they're both in timeshares. I said there was the week of the timeshare running back, because most of a handful of the timeshare running backs ended up doing really, really well. Zach Moss, Devon Achan, and Brees Hall all in timeshares. Brees Hall ended up being the lead back, which sure, fine. But going into it, I don't think you could have projected any of those guys as like the by far lead back in their offense. So for me, it was weak with timeshare.
I'm gonna push back on that a little.
Okay.
Just to make for clarification. there's a difference, right? If we take a look at projections, right? One thing that I talk about, especially in the RotoGrinders Discord, is about how mean projections, like that number is not just a number, it is a distribution.
Yes.
So there are, depending on the player, happens in soccer all the time, because I want to relate it to something that, I'm extremely familiar with. That people look at these soccer projections and they go, well, this guy has a 12-point projection and this guy has a 12-point projection. What's the difference? It's like, well, one guy could score 3 goals and the other guy rarely scores more than 18 points. It's like one guy, the way that he scores points is because he touches the ball a lot, right? He has a lot of volume. He's going to be around. He has a lot of opportunity. Does he take many shots? No, he doesn't take many shots, right? Or the shots he takes are from 35 yards out and they have a 2% likelihood of going in the net, right? But he'll take them once in a while. This other guy doesn't touch the ball that often, right? He's just closest to the net. But because he's closest to the net, his touches are the most valuable ones. So maybe he only touches the ball 6 times, but he could score 3 goals like that. Now, once you average it all out, they both come out to 12, right? They both come out to 14 or whatever. So, but their distributions are different. Right. So when one would say, it's like, oh, let's say at the same price, same everything, Joe Mixon, Devon Achane, Breece Hall, these types of, Breece Hall was 5,400, so it was a little bit cheaper. Like Joe Mixon is that type of most likely to get you 15 to 20 points in a lot of games, right? 12 to 18, right? Achane, it's like when the way that the offenses are schemed.
You're going to say that he has a wider distribution here, and I'm going to completely disagree with you.
Why wouldn't you think that he had, based on what we've seen? You're the small sample size guy, right?
I am. Yep.
Right. And and literally watching the games, you can't I think Breece Hall, you would agree with the way that they use Breece Hall usually.
Okay. So here's the way that you have to look at it from a modeling perspective. Because you are conceptually, you are right that there is a difference in the way they are schemed. There's a difference in the way that Achane and Breece Hall are used in relation to the way that Mostert and Dalvin Cook are used in those offenses.
I'm just saying the way that they score fantasy, it's not even the way that they use, but just the way that they score fantasy. But so right, James, just to clarify a little bit, this is the main reason why a receiving target, right, a reception is worth. Obviously it's worth more in actual fantasy points. But
just the opportunity of a target is worth 1.25 fantasy points or something.
And it's much higher than the opportunity of one rush.
Yes, that is true.
So typically the running backs that are more likely to see higher value targets, higher value touches, which include targets as well as goal line usage, tend
inside the 5, right?
Inside the 5 tend to go up, while guys that don't see many targets and are typically going through the line from the 20s, they could, their touches are nearly as valuable.
Right.
That's the main concept. But how do you model that, especially in smaller sample sizes?
The thing that we have to look at specifically with somebody like Achane and Breece Hall here, I had Achane projected for 12.4 fantasy points. Okay,
that's aligned with his That's aligned with his props. But I had him aggregated at 17 or something.
Right, that's super silly. To project him for 17 is super silly. And the reason for that specifically is that his volume is not actually good. And if you were to bring him back in line with what we expect a yards per carry to regress to, because I model NFL differently than things like baseball, because there's a lot of regression that you end up having to do.
How do you regress someone with 3 weeks worth of data?
You regress them towards league averages.
Yeah, but people would say he's different. He's not a league average.
Yeah. Well, everybody says everybody is different, and then you get Kyle Pitts, right? It's you can look at things and you can have these biases and try to say that somebody is different, and you can say, oh, well, it's because of the way that Achane is used, or it's because of the way that Breece Hall is used. It's like, okay, You can say that. And you can say that in a small sample size, but then over the course of 3 years or whatever, like, are they really special? Are they really different? Do we really think that Achane, that the only reason why Achane got there was because of an 80-yard rushing play?
Yeah, but that's why you play him.
No, that's not why you play him. You never play somebody because they have if your reasoning for playing any running back specifically is I think that they can break an 80-yard rushing touchdown, then you'd have a reason to play every single running back that touches the ball.
Yeah, but some people are more likely to do that than others.
No, that's not true. People
How
say
is
that
that
about
not true? When is Dalvin Cook going to run for an 80-yard touchdown?
Hold on. I can give you a specific example.
Okay.
Saquon Barkley. After year 1, he led the league in 20-plus rushing yard attempts, right? Like in 20-plus rushing yard plays. In year 2, that regressed significantly back towards league average. And
because the Giants are awful. Maybe that's the reason.
The Giants were awful in year 1. The Giants were awful in the first year. The only reason why the Giants were not as awful was because he was getting super lucky in his super long plays. Do you want to know the actual percentage of rushing attempts that end up being touchdowns from outside of the red zone?
How many?
It's less than 0.05%. It basically doesn't happen. The only time that it does happen is when a lucky thing happens.
The only time it happens is when the guy's chalk.
Absolutely.
Isn't that the only time that it happens?
That's the only time it happens. So from a modeling perspective, you kind of ignore those super long rushing yards.
Yeah, you can't ignore them though.
I said kind of ignore the super long outcome.
Imagine saying it's like, oh, do you play Robert Woods or Tank Dell at the same price? And you're like, well, Robert Woods is going to catch like 6-yard balls and not move. Yeah. And one guy could catch 20-yard balls and fly. But we're not going to count those. Just like the ones where he gets behind the defense.
That's not what I'm saying.
Deshaun Jackson, who cares?
And it's different when it comes to receivers. It's much different when it comes to receivers because ADOT matters and because intent on the things that they end up running and the plays they end up running matters. With running back,
yards per attempt on rushing, like isn't there a version of ADOT for running backs?
Yeah, you want to know what yards per attempt regresses to?
League average.
League average.
Okay.
For pretty much everyone. So
unless you're Barry Sanders.
Unless you're Barry Sanders or Jamal Charles, right? Like Jamal Charles.
Well, I've heard some people say Devon Achane is the next Jamal Charles.
Yeah, that's very funny. That's super silly. I've seen people say that he's the next next CJ2K, Chris Johnson. I've seen that comp too. And that's just you just can't do that from a modeling perspective. Things don't work that way. So yards per carry regresses somewhere into 3.5 to like 5 yards per carry. Basically, nobody ends up outside of that. If you're a bad running back, you're somewhere between 3 and 3.5 yards per carry. If you're a good running back, you're somewhere between 4.5 and 5 yards per carry. So if you're looking at Achane here and say that he's going to get 11 carries say that he's like the best running back in the league and he's at 5 yards per carry, you give him 55 yards. And then you look at his inside the 5 carries, you look at his inside the red zone work, and you say, oh, Mostert pretty much gets the majority of those. So, or even if they split them, right?
Just split it right down the middle. Just say
split it right down the middle. All right. Let me go look at what I had them projected for. From a macro perspective, Miami was implied for 1.14 rushing touchdowns with a team total of 30. So split that right down the middle. You give him basically half a touchdown. So now he has 11 for 55 and half a touchdown. That puts him at around 10 fantasy points or so.
Right. And probably a catch.
Give him a catch. And there's a projection of 12. To project him for 17 would have had to assume that he was the 1A and would get considerably more work than Mostert.
And Mostert got one more touch than him.
Because they are splitting work. So at Achane, like when you break it down and you say that even if you say that he's a really good running back and averaging 5 yards per carry, he he wasn't going to project. He should not have projected that well. He shouldn't have projected over 15 fantasy points by any means.
Yeah, well, he did.
Well, he shouldn't have. It was a really bad.
I tweeted out at 1 p.m. Eastern. I said I have 0 HN in my lineups. Let's see how long I last without closing the laptop. I found that out. It was 52 minutes. I mean, truthfully, he didn't. Towards the rest of the game, he didn't put up a score that you had to have.
No, because it was.
I mean, he put up 25 points. I mean, you would have loved to have it, but I mean, I'm not even sure if HN was in the winning Millie lineup.
HN and David Montgomery simply got there on their.
Whoa! Why are we talking crap about David Montgomery now?
Well, no, I because of the 42-yard rushing touchdown. So both of them had outcomes.
You played Montgomery for a way different like Montgomery.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I am not comparing HN and Montgomery in terms of like their veracity of chalk. I said that David Montgomery, his workload was expected to be the best on the slate, and he was a fine play overall. Like if you play David Montgomery, that's fine, whatever. But when we look at the way that Montgomery and HN both got there on their basically outside of projection outcomes, right? Dave Montgomery with a 42-yard rushing touchdown, basically right off the bat, and HN with an 80-yard rushing touchdown, and Adam Breece Hall with a 76-yard rushing touchdown. Those guys all kind of had the best possible thing happen that would get them there outside of their expected output. From a modeling perspective,
but this is what I've been told.
Mm-hmm.
They knew they were chalky.
Yeah. I hear that too.
Yeah, but you also hear that on the other side, where the guy's injured, and it's like, oh yeah, because he knew he was chalk.
Right. Yeah. So,
but Vegas called it in. They made the call. Right.
Pick a line. Pick a pathway to get in.
But I want to show that the winning Millie lineup, not the learn. I don't care about the winning lineup. I care about top 0.1% of lineups. I care about what sharp people do. But just the highlight, right? Obviously, the Jets defense scoring on like the end of the game won the guy the million. I just want to highlight this. I know I come across as a contrarian GPP guy, but it doesn't mean that you have to be nuts. I'm not nuts. Most of my if you take a look at the winning lineups from last night in GPP's large field or small field, it contains most of the better projected players, not all of them together. So we see here it's Burrow, Chase, right? Quarterback, wide receiver, easy. Right? You have David Montgomery at 44%, Breece Hall at 31%, Adam Thielen at 15%, right? Dallas Goedert, 5%. HN, the Jets defense. I mean, Addison was the lowest owned player at 4%. Leverage off of Justin Jefferson, which kind of makes sense. I mean, you take a look at this lineup. Dallas Goedert you would pair him with Hurts, right? We take a look at the next best lineup, right? You see here, Cooper Kupp at 6% owned. If you wanted to take a shot on him, Alvin Kamara was 13% owned. You take a look at it, you got Hopkins there. Pickens was 2.9% owned, but take a look at the rest of this lineup. Burrow, Chase, Laporta, Breece Hall, David Montgomery. I mean, look how much like chalk is here at the Saints defense. If you go through, and I'm not talking about specifically this week even, just go through week after week after week. I'm not saying that, we just got to jam the chalk, but you don't have to get dramatically different. You have to build in different ways, but you don't have to get dramatically different. I played DeAndre Hopkins. I had a Joe Burrow. I had a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd lineup, right? With Marquise Brown or with James Conner in there who got injured. Like stack-wise, like James in GPP, I focused on the Colts-Titans game. So I had like Tannehill, Hopkins, Okonkwo, Josh Downs, like something like that. Or A-Rich, Downs, Granson, Hopkins, like that. Or Burrow, Chase. I did a Bengals. I did from the Dobbs side also with Jamar Chase as the run back, right? So Dobbs, Marquise Brown, Zach Ertz, Jamar Chase. Then I also did Tua, leverage, because if I'm not going to play a Chan, I'm going to do Tua, Tyreek, Durham, Smythe, because tight end, who cares, right? If I'm going to punt there anyway, I might as well punt with the guy that's going to score 0 anyway.
Yeah.
And that's a place to use your Wan'Dale Robinson. That's the only place that I use Wan'Dale Robinson. So it's like yes. Did I throw in a Zach Wilson lineup out of my 10? Yes, I played a Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Tyler Conklin lineup. 1 out of the 10. I said on my stupid Saturday show. Yeah, I'm going to play one of them.
I played a pretty bad stack this week too.
Oh, what did you do?
I played a giant stack.
Oh no, I played I played a Daniel Jones lineup.
You had to, man.
Right, but his ceiling. You played Daniel Jones. You could have done it the Daniel Jones, Wan'Dale Waller route, but I didn't want to pay up a tight end for anyone that wasn't Laporta or Kelsey.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right?
I did Daniel Jones with Wan'Dale Robinson and Tyreek Hill. I said that if you were gonna play Wan'Dale Robinson, you had to play him with Daniel Jones.
Right.
How
do you project Wan'Dale Robinson, a guy that gets 2-yard targets?
Badly.
You almost have to dude, you have to project Wan'Dale as if he's getting targets like a running back gets targets. Yeah. You have to consider Wan'Dale Robinson to legitimately in your model be a running back who gets 0% rushing share and 22% target share.
Yeah,
but it's running back targets.
I said on my stream, I couldn't think of a way for Wan'Dale Robinson to get there unless he scored a touchdown. Or 2 touchdowns. And there were not very many touchdowns go along with the Giants, right? Their implied score was 17.5 or something. So basically, Wan'Dale Robinson, the nut outcome for him, the best possible outcome for him was something 8 to 10 catches and a touchdown. And that 8 to 10 catches was going to be for 45 yards.
Right. Or not even. I was going to say more 32 yards.
Yeah. You're not getting basically anything for him in terms of yardage. So he has to score at least 1 touchdown. So the only way that Wan'Dale Robinson chalk was going to get there was if Daniel Jones ended up throwing for 2, maybe 3 touchdowns and he ends up scoring 2 of them. That's the only way he was going to kill you. So the only way that I was going to use him was paired with Daniel Jones, because if Daniel Jones throws for 2 to 3 touchdowns at 5,800 and runs for another 50, that game is competitive with Miami. The lineup that I ended up playing was Daniel Jones, Wan'Dale Robinson, Tyreek Hill, and then paired with Laporta and Justin Jefferson for max upside, right? And that one I should have eaten David Montgomery chalk. I didn't. I should have eaten David Montgomery chalk in that one.
Weird thing that the Millie 207,000, the play action has twice as many entries.
Yeah.
Right? So it has, obviously you need to score even higher because there's way more lineups to compete against. Lineup 262 had higher ownership. So out of 440,000 entries, this is the winning lineup, right? Obviously it's a week where a lot of chalk did, a lot of the highest owned players, highest projected players did well, right? But I mean, a majority of the slates, a good portion of the well-projected players will do well. Yeah. Now, 80+% of them, maybe not, but 40-50% of them, sure. Yeah.
We typically
Burrow, Montgomery, Hall. What?
We typically don't see winning GPP lineups with an aggregate of 178% ownership. Typically it's
but a lot of times you'll see 120, 130.
Yeah. You'll see the 125s. You'll see up to 140, 178. This was a chalk bomb week for sure.
Right, but you don't have to get so far out of the zone, right? So what other GPP things did you do? Because I played one of the thing that made no sense to me after the cards flipped over.
Yeah.
I was concerned about it. I played 10 different quarterbacks in 10 lineups.
Wow.
Even though I focused on certain games, but a lot of times I was playing both sides of the game, stuff like that. Yeah. I played a lineup, Josh Reynolds, Laporta, Adam Thielen, obviously Jared Goff, right? If people are playing Montgomery, all the Lions were chalky. Yes. So it's hard to get away from the Lions, leverage-wise,
But Jared Goff's like 5% owned or something.
No, it was 2% owned.
Yeah, it was nothing.
Like, how does that happen? I ran lineups and I mean, like, if you ran lineups in like stack configurations, because of how well Raymond and Reynolds and Laporta, like, yeah, David Montgomery projected well, and if you didn't make it so that you can't have a running back in your stack, that kind of lowers it a little bit. But I projected Goff to be like 5.5% owned because he was originally like 3, and I'm like, dude, anyone that's using any type of tool is gonna get Goff stacks. I mean, like, not overwhelmingly, but
yeah,
you're gonna get enough of them because of all these values on the Lions. And so I purposely bumped up his projected ownership, thinking that effect was going to happen. And obviously very large, like the Millie, obviously the amount of like 150 maxers and people, I mean, are much smaller percentage.
Yeah.
But remember, I'm playing primarily kind of like 5,000 entry or less. Smaller for the $33 5 max, the $50 red zone, the spy, stuff like that. So maybe a little bit sharper. Still in those, I mean, I could. Do we have that up? Do we have the spy up? I'll bring up the spy. We go to quarterback. Jared Goff was 1.8% owned.
Yeah, I had him at 4.5.
Like Ryan Tannehill had more ownership.
When
Daniel Jones and CJ Stroud and Lamar Jackson at 7,800 were higher owned than Jared Goff, even though if we take a look at running back, take a look at wide receiver, right? And we see Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds both at 11% owned. And we look at here and we see Sam Laporta at 16% owned. So there's so many lineups that contain Lions in it that had no Goff.
Yeah, people don't like Goff, man. People. Okay, so
you love the Lions, but you're not going to play the quarterback.
It's just a combination of David Montgomery. Like, if David Montgomery is not 50% owned, like 45% owned, then I think more people go with Goff. But it was
and
just
also people's propensity of not including a running back in their stack, not
yeah,
doing something like Goff, Montgomery, Laporta is like, why am I doing that? Or Goff, Montgomery, Reynolds.
Well, especially because Montgomery doesn't catch passes. Like he's not a receiver.
Who cares?
I think people care when they're building out their stack. People care.
I think people need to start waking up. I think a lot of the Sims stuff, right? And we have internally that RotoGrinders will be releasing something that's in comparison. It's currently being worked on.
Yeah.
Right. I'm testing it. Right. I have test access. But if you look at if you simulate things in general and you tie if you tie everything together, more and more, some of our assumptions that heuristically do make sense and they do show up and it is whatever. It's actually simpler than it is. Like when people ask, like 3, do I stack a quarterback with 2 pass catchers? Do I have a run back with 2? Can I pair a running back to a quarterback? No. And people are like, well, only if it's a pass catcher, because then like at that point, at those points, you're thinking of, it's very similar to NBA, right? In NBA, we rarely talk about correlation when it comes to point guards and centers because of the pick and roll, right? Because it's like, oh, point guard, is going to assist to that. And you take a wing player with another, like no one talks about that in NBA DFS. You know what we talk about in NBA DFS? This team's going to put up a lot of goddamn points, right? And it's going to be a close game and the total's high and these players are values. So you can play 2 or 3 of them from the same game. No problem. Very similar to NFL. Like if you take a look, a lot of the sharper top, not all of them or whatever, you see a lot more onslaughts.
Yep.
You see a lot. It's a byproduct of the offense just putting up a lot of points and it's going to a bunch of people. So if the Lions put up 35 plus points, like it's going to carry 2, 3, or even 4 players, regardless of the positions, because they're scoring what? 5 plus touchdowns and probably 400 to 500 yards of offense.
Yep.
Who that goes to? Well, David Montgomery could have 120 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns while Goff still throws for 303. Like, that's still a possibility. And also, like, you could play two wide receivers. You could play Josh Reynolds and Sam Laporta, right? And they both for their prices, Laporta puts up 25 points with 2 touchdowns. Reynolds puts up 20 points with 1 touchdown. And the winning quarterback is Jalen Hurts
with 35.
Right. And paired with no one. Right. Because he put up way more points than anyone else. Or it could be one of those slates where Josh Dobbs and Josh Dobbs, Marquise Brown, but because Josh Dobbs is so cheap, right? His 24 points is worth more than because you could fit in everything. You now have Jamar Chase in there, right? Like, there are ways that these things happen that you heuristically don't look and go, well, this doesn't make sense on like a play-by-play, but you think very, very micro on a, like, well, if this game shoots out, that means one team scoring a lot and another team scoring a lot. It's like, what happens if one team just absolutely rolls the other team? Like, we see that way more often now in the NFL, where instead of thinking about, well, I can't play the Eagles Hurt stack because I'm not sure if the Rams are going to push them. It's like, well, what happens? That play it out in your mind, because people play out Hurts is going to throw a big touchdown to AJ Brown, and then Stafford's going to throw a big touchdown to Cooper Kupp, and then it's going to go back and forth like that. It's like, what happens if this happens? Hurts throws a big touchdown to AJ Brown, and then the next play, Stafford throws a pick. They're on the 20-yard line, and then Hurts runs the ball in. And then the Rams get the ball back. They go 3 and out. The Eagles have the ball on the 40-yard line now, and they quickly go down the field. Dallas Goedert catches a pass. Swift brings it down to the 2-yard line, and Hurts rushes it in. Next thing you know, they've scored 21 points in the first quarter, and you're looking going, why didn't I play 3 Eagles in my lineup? Right? And no Rams. And in the second half, they just hand the ball off to DeAndre Swift 22 times, and he goes 110 and 2 touchdowns. And you're sitting there going, it's weird that it's Hurts, Swift, Goddard as the optimal, like, an AJ Brown has a bunch of points, but not enough that at 8K it pays. And the Eagles win 38-3. Like, that's how likely is that in comparison to, like, well, what happens if it's 38-35? It's like, it's so much easier to just bet on a team than it is to bet on even just a game.
I think one thing that I think that is going to cause problems with is that I do think that with the way that the contest sims run now across the industry, I think that something that people are making the mistake on is kind of going too far that way.
I'm not saying that Onslaught and play 5 guys from the same team.
Well, no, but people think that, right? Like, because when you look at, so with those examples, I need to do like a whole video on this. I kind of talked a little bit about it.
I mean, we don't have that much time on the show, so why don't you tease it? And then do a video.
So, I did kind of a small breakdown of what I thought the contest sims would do to the industry before the NFL season started, right? Like, when all this stuff was getting addressed. And I kind of talked about a couple main things. One, I think that people are going to look at this as an optimizer, which is wrong. I don't think that it should be used as an optimizer. I think that it should be used as a way to see who is over and undervalued. And that's how I built the one over at Payer. So I thought that people would use it as a glorified optimizer, which is wrong. And then the other thing that I thought that people would do is people would take it too far and start playing bad lineups because they won GPPs in the contest sims. And the fact of the matter is there's a lot of bad lineups that are built. And bad lineups are going to win GPPs. It just is what it is, right? And I think that what people will see in the contest sims is that it'll give them justification to do things that probably are not, it's the right word here. EV is not the right word, but it gives justification to do things that maybe goes against the math that we have found unlocks the most upside. and I need to like center my thoughts on that a little bit more and do like
okay.
full
So
video
that's
on
your
it. But
tease, and then you'll come out with a video. People could follow you on Twitter at paydirt_DFS. You'll post it there.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at paydirt_DFS, or you can find all my stuff over at paydirtdfs.com. But to close out this thought, the idea of stacking 5 players from one team and then hoping that the onslaught ends up going off because of X, Y, or Z, yes, that is going to win some amount of time. Or playing a QB naked without their pass catchers, a la Patrick Mahomes. There's a lot of talk about that yesterday because there's a lot of that kind of thing happening in contest sims across the industry. Even though something can win a GPP, it doesn't mean that it is a good idea to exacerbate that into your portfolio outside of some small amount. And I think that especially people who are playing 1 lineup or 5 lineups or something like that are kind of taking these things that happen a small percentage of the time and just running with them because contest sims across the industry are saying, oh, well, it could happen. And I think that there needs to be a balance. I think that people are going to take it a little bit too far. So
well, that's the main. It's the main point that I've always made with that. I mean, same thing for optimizers, same thing for projections. And people don't know. They think they know what they're looking at, but they don't really understand. Oh, yeah, these are the highest ROI lineups. But how did they realize their ROI?
Right.
The distribution is completely and utterly bimodal. Right. If you compared to a normal distribution or a bimodal distribution, general distributions, that this is the type of lineup that will come in the top 10% or bottom 10%. Like it's going to be one of the other. When it comes to the top 10%, I mean, you may 5x, 10x, even more your money, but 90% of the time, it's not even close to the cash line. So you're going to be playing a long time, losing, possibly winning. Right? As opposed to playing lineups that don't look as bimodal, right? They look a little bit more normal and they cash a little bit more frequently. So those ROI lineups may be like a sim may say, here's a lineup that's 82% ROI and here's a lineup that's 57% ROI. So 82% ROI like realizes its ROI by like coming in like the top 100 like 0.8% of the time or something like that. And if it doesn't, it's dead. And then the 57% ROI lineup is like, well, it cashes like 22% of the field cashes, but it cashes at like a 30% rate.
Right.
And it wins at like 0.04, like half the time as the other one, but it just because it cashes so much more than what the field will do. That's where it's realizing a lot of its even though it still could win. Just can't win it half as much. So, like, it's all you're going to see is that ROI number. It's very similar to the mean projection in an optimizer. You're looking at the middle number of a distribution that may not even be normal. And these ROI numbers are the same thing. You're looking at a mean number of a distribution of payouts that is unlikely to be normal. So to compare the two together is not proper.
When you think about, so take that thought, right? And then say, oh, well, if a median projection in a projection system is relatively subjective to the way that that projection is being built, think about the way, and that like causes a large difference in the accuracy of just the projection of one player. And then think about, oh, so this contest simulation has a bias towards those projections as well. If any projection there is off by a little bit, then your ROI of that lineup is completely shot in the entire system, right? So many crazy things with that.
But you'll make a video about that.
I will. Yeah, I'll make a longer
promising a video.
Yeah, I'm promising
on your YouTube channel. We have to get you YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love more people watch my videos.
Right. So what's your YouTube channel?
Oh man,
that's the only way that it'll happen. Like
I've never
just look for James McCool.
Hold on.
Is it a youtube.com/@ whatever the hell? I mean, what is it?
I have to. I've never plugged.
You don't even know the URL of your YouTube channel.
It is youtube.com/paydirtanalytics.
Paydirt Analytics.
Paydirt Analytics.
A marketer would tell you that your YouTube channels and everything should all You should try to get all the same usernames so it's easier to promote.
Yeah, well, people would say that, and I'm terrible at all of that. So as of right now, it is Patered Analytics on YouTube.
And Neil says real ones are already subscribed to James's channel.
That's true. I do have 652 subscribers. I mean,
okay,
I have
some.
Bad. Yeah, I have some subscribers, but it'd be cool to get over 1,000, I guess.
Right. You can find. I do stuff on my YouTube channel every day. YouTube.com/Jordan Cooper. You just go right there. I got my name. I got my name a long time ago. I'm not giving that up because there are a lot of Jordan Coopers.
Yeah.
Right. So go over there. I'll be doing a show in literally 10 minutes. So subscribe over there. Subscribe to James's YouTube channel. Watch out for that video. We got a pre-lock show here on the RotoGrinders YouTube channel for Monday Night Football. That's at 7:30, 7:45 tonight. We got some playoff baseball. We got the props and pick'em package. Right, that you got to get those stuff. Got to get that early. Right, sign up to RotoGrinders Premium. Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. Right, you want to get these NFL props and NFL bets like Tuesdays and Wednesdays and stuff like that. Don't wait until Saturdays and Sundays. The numbers and the prices have moved, so you want to get as much value as you can. Definitely do that. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here and you like the content. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Send in your mailbag questions at theoryofdfs.com, and I'll answer them here. So you know what we do here. We talk about everything you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props, and pick 'em here on RotoGrinders Today.